Hello my friends, we are back for another video, but it is not a review. Today we are diving into the sea of Marvel Legends figures that we got in 2018, taking a look at what I consider to be my top 10 figures for the year. And this is entirely a subjective list. There is no objectiveness going into this. We have got my 10 favorite figures for the year. It's entirely comic based as well, because if you're familiar with the channel, you know that I really do not get into the movie side of things in terms of toys. So this is 100% comic based figures, which is the only way I would have it. So we're going to dive into number 10, take a look at the comic Deadpool figure that we got in the Sasquatch wave towards the beginning of the year. If you know anything about me, you know that I am 100% over Deadpool fever. I don't think he deserves the spotlight that he has, but I absolutely love his early original appearance, his early look and feel, and this particular figure just does everything I need it to do to get that across. The body they used, the accessories they gave him, the overall design for this figure, and the Rob Liefeld look does me quite a bit of justice, and I could not be without this figure. This was a must-have for me this year. Number 9, we're going to another mutant. That's going to be a trend when it comes to this list. We're going to the Mohawk 80s era Storm figure that was in the Apocalypse wave. This is probably my favorite wave of the year, and this is not my preferred Storm, but this figure is fantastic. Not to mention the fact that it's a Storm figure, and I've wanted a Storm for quite a while. I dig everything about this. If it was only the 90s version, she'd be up way higher on the list. But the head sculpt is fantastic, the Mohawk is fantastic. They gave her the amazing new lightning effects that just about every figure comes with now, and it's hard to beat this Storm figure until they come out with a 90s version with, you know, a gold blue team style figure for the X-Men roster. This is it. This is the Storm to have. Number 8 is, unsurprisingly, another mutant figure, and this is a long time want of mine, a long time favorite, and a long time figure that I think a lot of folks wanted to get in the Hasbro era that we definitely had in the Toy Biz era, and that would be Bishop from the Sauron wave towards the later half of the year. This is a fantastic action figure. He has a stellar head sculpt. The only real drawback to this guy is the fact that he's on the Hyperion body, but at the same time, this body really works for him, and everything about it is well done. I really dig this figure. I love the gun that he comes with. You really can't go wrong. Who doesn't need a Bishop figure in your collection? At the end of the day, this is one of the quintessential X-Men, and I think Hasbro gave us a stellar figure. One of the few non-mutants on this list is going to be number 7, and it's the only Spider-Man themed figure, Spider-Man themed sort of figure on the list, and that's going to be Mysterio. It is hard to debate the fact that this figure was almost perfectly executed on Hasbro's part. Everything about it is just top-notch. All the little details, the checkerboard pattern that is sculpted into the body, the effect pieces, you know, the skull underneath the fishbowl head, whether you got the white head, whether you got the green head, at the end of the day, this is one that's really hard to debate, and it was hotly sought after. He was incredibly hard to find in stores, and rightly so, because it's just a stellar, amazing figure. Rounding out the bottom half of this list, at number 6, we go back to my mutant trend, and we're taking a look at Archangel. This figure is one that I have wanted for quite a while. I never got the original one. He sought crazy money on the aftermarket, but now you can readily get him, and it's a fantastic figure. He still uses that Bucky Cat body, but honestly it works so well. They did tweak him a little bit. He has amazing wings. You can't get over just how wild these wings are. And then of course he comes with all of these new accessories. So we've got the add-on for Apocalypse. We have got the extra heads. It's really hard to debate the value for money when it comes to this particular figure. And he is a hallmark of the X-Men team. You can't not have him. And Hasbro did a fantastic job and a great idea when it came to how to reissue this amazing toy. Number 5 is one that I kind of debated over a little too much. We have a number of examples of this particular figure now, not necessarily from this year, but we've gotten quite a few of them as of late. And of course I'm talking about Wolverine. So we're going back to the Apocalypse wave, and number 5 is the Tiger Stripe Wolverine, the blue and the yellow. This is, as far as I'm concerned, my classic Wolverine. I know a lot of folks consider their classic Wolverine to be the brown suit. That's not me. I love that suit, don't get me wrong, but when it comes to my personal taste, blue and yellow will always win out. This figure is just as amazing as the brown suit. He's got a new head sculpt, all the articulation you want this little guy to have. And at the end of the day, I mean, this is a must-have. You can't have just one suit. You have to have both. They occupy a same space as far as I'm concerned in collections, and this guy is just a must-have. You really can't not have a Wolverine on your shelf. Number 4 takes us back to the Sasquatch wave. This is maybe one of the most surprising figures for me of the year, and it's one that I didn't know I needed so badly until I finally got such an amazing example, and that would be Deathlock. This is a longtime favorite character for me. Back when I was a kid, I had a huge fascination for this guy. Don't ask me why. I mean, it's the zombie thing, it's the robot thing, it's the exposed brain thing. All of that works for me, and this figure is an amazing example in plastic of what this character is, and I really am happy that Hasbro was able to pull this one out and made such an amazing figure. Top 3 territory is a bit of a crazy mess as far as my figures go, because I knew at each certain interval when I reviewed these upcoming figures that they were my favorite figure of the year until the next one came out. So in 2017, my favorite Marvel Legends figure was Shatterstar. Whether that surprised people or not, that was my favorite. I love the character so much, and to get an amazing figure was just, you know, the best thing ever. So when I knew that we were getting an X-Force Cable, well, hands down, that's going to be my favorite figure of the year, and he was for so long, but at the end of the day, he has come out at number 3, and this guy, I mean, it's really hard. All of these top 3 contenders really share a same space as far as I'm concerned, but Cable is going to be at that 3 spot. He is a fantastic action figure, just no way to debate it. He has a ton of awesome design and details, paint apps. He has a humongous gun. What more could you really ask for? This is, as far as I'm concerned, the quintessential Cable, and Hasbro did a fantastic job here. The last mutant on our list takes us to the Sauron wave again for our number 2 spot, and when I reviewed this guy, I pretty much said flat out that, you know, there's a good chance this guy is going to edge out Cable for my number 1 spot. Well, he did, but he didn't end up in a number 1 spot. So our runner-up is going to be Omega Red. This guy is, for lack of a better word, almost perfect, really. There's really nothing to complain about with this guy. The sculpt is on point, the paint is on point, the look and feel of this guy is exactly what you want. He's got this hulking new body style. Everything is just well thought out, well planned, well executed on this figure. It's a quintessential X-Men villain. You can't not have him. He's among that kind of top tier villain that you need to have on your mutant shelf, and Hasbro just really pulled this one out and delivered a spectacular figure. Now, before we get to number 1, I figured, because I normally don't throw the Build-A-Figures into the same list as the quote-unquote standard figures, I give them their own kind of spotlight. So what we'll do this year, instead of just giving you my top Build-A-Figure, I'm just going to run through my list real quick of the Build-A-Figures that I did complete. So at the bottom of the list is the SP//DR, the Spider mech suit figure from that particular wave, and there was no way that this figure was going to get anywhere else because I absolutely hated that Build-A-Figure. I hate the design, I hate the figure, I think it's an awful toy. I hate it so much that I got rid of it as soon as I possibly could. So it's the only figure from Legends this year that I think I got rid of, if that tells you how much I didn't like it. The next Build-A-Figure would be Lizard. I do think it's a pretty solid figure. The tail is really what leaves it kind of towards the bottom. There's a huge gap between the mech spider and Lizard though, so don't think they're right next to each other. They're very much far apart. I think the design on him is pretty solid. He very much does look like a dinosaur, not necessarily like a lizard, but he's a pretty cool figure. He just has kind of a wonky tail. Next up from that, we're going to go Sasquatch. I do think that, you know, as far as my personal taste goes, Sasquatch is pretty solid. I like the character. I think the execution on Sasquatch is pretty good. He's got some odd paint apps here and there, but overall it's a pretty solid figure. There's not anything really wrong with it. It's just kind of middle of the road for me. The remaining Build-A-Figures on my list were all really close together. I was having a really difficult time figuring out which one should be number 1, because just like with my actual Legends figures, there were many points where I thought, okay, this is my number 1 Build-A-Figure for the year. The third Build-A-Figure on my list would be Apocalypse. And that's with or without the arm from Archangel. I don't really think it elevates him that much more. But I do think that it's a fantastic Build-A-Figure. I don't have any personal issues with it. I don't have the Toy Biz version, so I have no bias there. I do think it's an objectively very cool Build-A-Figure, the Toy Biz one, but I really like the scale and the size of the new one. I like the paint apps. I like the coloring on it. I love the face sculpt. So, you know, it's a personal preference thing. I just really, really like it. The runner-up Build-A-Figure for me, though, this one was definitely difficult because in both reviews for number 1 and 2, I said that they were number 1. But at the end of the day, number 2, the runner-up is going to end up being Monster Venom. And I know that this figure, you know, it kind of occupies an odd space in terms of what Venom it actually is. A lot of people debate on where it falls in terms of spider continuity, but I think it's just an amazing hulking style Venom. It's incredibly detailed, tons of awesome paint apps. Coloring on it is just fantastic. The sculpt on it is through the roof, and you can get it in such crazy positions too. It's wild how actually posable such a big hulking figure is. I had a lot of fun playing around with this figure, so much so that it took me twice as long to review the damn thing because I just kept playing around with it. So it's an amazing toy. It's really hard not to put this at the top of the list. But at the end of the day, my number 1 Build-A-Figure for the year is Sauron. Despite the fact that he has some incredibly weird parts reuse using the old Lizard movie parts, this figure is just stellar. There is no other way to describe it. It's amazingly done, amazingly painted, amazingly sculpted. The wings are fantastic. That head sculpt is wild. And I just have to give Hasbro the kudos when they figured out a way to reuse that lizard body. That is a crazy reuse of parts. That on its own is worth, you know, kind of a top tier spot on the list. But the fact that the figure itself ended up being so amazing, incredibly posable, just really dynamic, you can't go wrong. It has to be the top spot for me. And once it's all said and done, my number 1 figure of the year for Marvel Legends is going to be the Thing, the Walgreens exclusive Thing. I'm not sure that this is going to be too much of a stretch for a lot of people because objectively and subjectively, this is easily the best figure Hasbro created this year. There is no doubt about it that they went all out on this particular figure. Don't ask me why they decided to make such an amazing figure a Walgreens exclusive instead of a mainline release. There's no telling how well they could have done with this guy if he was available everywhere. But this toy is just fantastic. Posability, sculpt, articulation, the paint on this thing, all the accessories, the extra head, the extra hands, they just went all out on it. Not to mention the fact that it's basically a Build-A-Figure that's in a standard package. $20 and you get this humongous figure. Value for money alone is just through the roof on this guy. And it's hard to debate that this thing is, no pun intended, the best figure of the year. When I got him in my hand, I knew right then and there, like, well, there goes Omega Red, there goes Cable. This guy is fantastic, and it's a must-have for any Legends collector, Fantastic Four fan or not. So, yeah, guys, that is my top 10 favorite Marvel Legends figures and Build-A-Figures for the year. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what your top 10s are. Let me know what figures you favorited out of this year. Let me know down in the comments, and I'll catch you later.